in a state of iman and in a state of ihtisab, all of his sins are forgiven. All of his past sins are forgiven. So what does fasting in a state of iman mean? What does fasting in a state of ihtisab mean? And iman and ihtisab are very interesting Arabic words that are very hard to translate. Very hard to translate. You might come with many different synonyms, but they don't really give you the gist of the meaning of the word. In fact, to explain the two words, you need paragraphs. And so iman means out of belief. Believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Believing that you are attaining closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Believing that by fasting, you are sacrificing something that is halal to train yourself to easily abstain from what is haram. Believing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be the one that was rewarding you. That no one else will reward you. That in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed a set reward for all of the actions, all of the deeds, except for siyam. فَإِنَّهُ لِي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Hadith Qudsi, it is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the one that judges how good and how pious and how much of iman and ihtisab is in your fasting. And He's the one that rewards. فَإِنَّهُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ. It is for me and I reward it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Hadith Qudsi. Ihtisab is a different meaning. Ihtisab means that you would count on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It comes from the word hasana, or counting, or accounting. And so ihtisab means that you would count on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, you feel hungry, but you would count on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant you patience. And then perhaps reward you with a beautiful iftar. You count on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. Maybe someone would curse you, or step on your toe, or do something against you, transgress against you during Ramadan. You would follow the Prophet tradition, where you're asked to say, Inni sa'im, Inni sa'im. You're asked to say it twice, reminding yourself that you are fasting, and hence, you're responding to someone that transgressed against you, not with the equal response, not with the usual response, not with anger, but with a response reminding yourself that you are fasting. And then you count that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for that patience, will grant you patience first, will reward you for that patience, and will perhaps even punish that sinner that transgressed against you. You rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on it. You count on Him for it. SubhanAllah. These are the blessings of Ramadan. And we'll conclude this first part of the khutbah with 2 points. The first point is actually a story or an incident that happened to me a few years back. I actually went to Toronto to attend the Eid festival there. And so when I went to Toronto, I left the bus station and then I took a cab to the place where the Eid festival was held. And it's a beautiful Eid festival. And it just so happened that the cab driver was Muslim. So, Assalamu alaikum, how are you? Eid Mubarak to you, how's your family, how's your children? Just a casual conversation that I had with the taxi driver. And then he revealed to me something that angered him. He said, look, we're so divided. Some people are having Eid tomorrow. Some of them had them yesterday. Some of them have them today. We're so divided. It's so bad, it's so horrible. This Muslim community is horrible. We Muslims are never going to be successful in this life. We're never going to, progress. We're so divided. And subhanAllah, I actually couldn't answer the brother. I felt, you're right. But then later on, I kind of thought about it. Sometimes you get these thoughts later and you feel, I wish I had that thought at the time just to respond that. So the thought that I got was, so what? What's the big deal about having Eid on a different day? Why does that divide us? We still have Eid, we still say Eid Mubarak to each other, we still visit each other, we still pray, we're still fasting, we still have iftars. What's the big deal about this? The reality is, we're not going to have Ramadan on the same day. We're not going to have Eid on the same day. It's wishful thinking, subhanAllah. Because it's not going to happen, because we come from so many different backgrounds, especially here in North America. So many different religious backgrounds. You know, some of us are Hanafis, some of us are Shafi'is, some of us follow different school of thoughts, and every opinion actually has its merit. Every opinion, even if you feel strongly about yours, has its merit, has a scholarly opinion about it. Whether you follow calculations, or moon sighting in Mecca, or moon sighting in North America, or moon sighting in Canada only, or follow the Hilal Committee, whatever it says in Toronto, or the Hilal Committee that's here in Ottawa, all these opinions have valid merits to them. So why does that divide us? Why does difference of opinion have to be a source of division? Why not a source of richness? Why not have Eid on 3 days? First day of Eid happens to be on this day, and that day, and that day. SubhanAllah, great blessing and great reward. Eid al-Fitr is held on this day, and that day. You know, Zakat al-Fitr is issued on this day, that day, and that. Not just one day, but 3 days or 2 days. It's richness. This difference of opinion should not divide us. Wallahu a'lam. The second concluding thought in this part of the khutbah is a very interesting hadith related to Abu Bakr. The Prophet ﷺ at one point in time asked the Sahaba, who woke up today and who today is fasting? And Abu Bakr said, I am. And some Sahaba said, I am. And then he said, who amongst us here gave in charity? And Abu Bakr said, I am. I did. Some Sahaba said, I did. But the hands were less and less. Fewer hands actually did that on the same day. And then the Prophet asked, who actually visited a sick person? Abu Bakr said, I did. And fewer hands said, I did. Who amongst you, attended a funeral? Abu Bakr said, I did. And perhaps no hands raised their hands at that point. And then the Prophet is reported to have said, مَنِ اجْتَمَعْنَ فِيهِ فَقَدْ دَخْلَ الْجَنَّةِ. Whoever these qualities are combined in one person, he would enter paradise. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله واستغفر. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Abu Bakr was a very competitive man. He did not compete so much so in worldly riches and worldly opportunities, but he competed very much in opportunities related to the akhirah. Very interestingly enough, the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said a very interesting hadith where he says that everyone will be shaded with what he or she has spent until the Day of Judgment finishes. This is regarding the Day of Judgment. Everyone will be shaded with what he or she spent for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. حتى يفض الناس, until the judgment is done, until people disperse. So we are shaded with what we spent. Now the narrators of this hadith